Hey, how's it going? This is Adrian in Insomnia Records, and today I'd like to share with you 10 titles that I feel would be perfect for inclusion in the Criterion Collection and for some inexplicable reason are not. Previously, I did a video about my, top 10 recommendations for good entry points into the collection for newcomers as well as seasoned cinephile collectors as gap fillers, or if something, if they don't have one of those 10 yet, these would be my recommendations. But that was the previous video. I'd like to go ahead and start and pretty much go over 10 titles that for some reason aren't there yet. Maybe they'll be there in the future. When I originally wanted to do this video, the movie Sorcerer, the William Friedkin movie Sorcerer, was on my list in this stack. And since then it has been included in the collection. So you never know. One of these might actually show up there at some time, hopefully in the near future. But let me just go on and get on with it without any further ado. Let's get on to the very first entry in this. And it's a movie from 1990, and it's a movie that pretty much is a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom. And it's a movie by David Lynch, which is called Wild at Heart, starring Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern as two star-crossed lovers who end up going on the run from Laura Dern's mom, played by her real-life mom, Diane Ladd, who recently passed away. Rest in peace, Diane Ladd. She was an amazing actress in her own right, and amazing in this film. She's really good and just like a really villainous, poisonous woman who will stop at nothing to get her revenge on Nick Cage. Well, Nick Cage's character, Sailor Ripley. Also in this movie are Harry Dean Stanton, he's amazing in everything. I love Harry Dean Stanton. The one that really steals the show in this movie is Willem Dafoe as Bobby Peru. Any scene that Bobby Peru is in this movie, he just steals that scene automatically. And it's basically like a road movie. Most of it takes place as them driving a convertible and just trying to put as much distance between them and her mom and her mom's underworld associates that are assisting in trying to track down Sailor and exact her revenge. So also in this movie are John Lurie, Jack Nance, who's best known as Henry Spencer in Eraserhead, also Isabella Rossellini, Grace Zabriskie, Twin Peaks alumni Sherilyn Fenn and Cheryl Lee. This movie has a lot of really odd references to The Wizard of Oz for some reason, and it all works. I mean, in the world of David Lynch, in the worlds that David Lynch created, no one else could take these disparate elements and make them work and make them function as another world as much as David Lynch, or quite in the same way that David Lynch did, and that's what made his movie so special. Also, to noteworthy things about this movie that should be mentioned are, the soundtrack to it, which is kind of odd because it has everything from blues legend Coco Taylor to Angelo Badalamenti's amazing score work to Bill Doggett to the heavy metal band Power Mad in on the radio, and also in a really memorable scene in this film. And so that's just a brief synopsis of it. It's really, you take any David Lynch movie and it's pretty much impossible to give you a really good rundown without making it sound like this guy's describing 10 different movies all at the same time. But I swear to you, if you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen this movie, please see this movie. This is if you like David Lynch movies, this is for some reason it never really makes the top of the list when people talk about David Lynch movies. This one is one of those kind of underrated gems, and I'm not really sure why, because I think it's just as good as any of his other films. Maybe because it wasn't written and directed by him. This movie was actually, the screenplay was written by Barry Gifford, and maybe that has something to do with it. But nonetheless, this is fantastic. Definitely check out Wild at Heart if you haven't already. I'm hoping that if Criterion puts this out in the future, that they would go ahead and put together a David Lynch box set the same way that they've done with other filmmakers. And I think that would be a really special thing, and this would be a very welcome inclusion into that filmography. So I think I've said enough about that. But for my first choice of things that should be in the Criterion Collection and aren't, I give you Wild at Heart. Okay, so the next one up is a movie. Actually, let me back up a little bit, because I did mention that there are references to The Wizard of Oz in this movie. And apparently David Lynch was obsessed. He had this really fascination with the movie The Wizard of Oz, even as a young child. And so did I. I remember when I was a kid, The Wizard of Oz would be played like on regular TV maybe once or twice a year. And this was before VCRs. This was way before streaming. And if you missed it, you missed it. So whenever I could catch The Wizard of Oz, I was always mesmerized by it. I always thought like this movie had a real special quality to it. And even watching it as an adult, I feel that it retains these mystical qualities that are very different from other movies. So there is a movie that kind of goes more in depth with David Lynch's fascination with The Wizard of Oz, and that is a Janus contemporary title that was released a year ago called Lynch Oz. And this is very much worth your time. And this would also kind of explain the whole Wild at Heart Wizard of Oz connection. So now that the sale is going on, this would be a perfect time to pick this up. This is actually a little cheaper than the rest of the Blu-rays in the Criterion Collection. And so is the Art Life documentary about David Lynch. Is also a bit cheaper than the other typical Blu-ray movies. So definitely check this out during the sale. If you see a copy of Lynch Oz, I recommend this one as well. So now getting on to the next one. This next movie was made in 1978. It was directed by Ulu Grosbard, and I hope I didn't butcher that name. And the name of the movie is Straight Time, starring Dustin Hoffman. Now, this movie basically is a true crime saga, and it tells the story of Edward Bunker. And it's based on a book by Edward Bunker called No Beast So Fierce. Now, Edward Bunker was a career criminal. He was a hardened criminal. He did a long bit in jail. He was, in prison for a long time. And I guess in there he learned how to write beautifully, because he wrote some really great books, and he's a really good writer. And he wrote pretty much the basis for what would be Straight Time. And he was even a consultant on Straight Time, and he was even made a cameo in Straight Time. And aside from that, he was Mr. Blue in Reservoir Dogs. So, he definitely had his time to shine on the silver screen, and his books are great. Definitely track down any of his books, like Dog Eat Dog or I forget the rest of them. He did several books. My favorite of which is the one I just showed you, No Beast So Fierce. And that would be a great starting point if you're going to get into him. So Dustin Hoffman in this movie. Dustin Hoffman is one of these actors that you could tell was just born to act. Just like just like Marlon Brando, just born to act. Like that was his thing. He probably came out of the womb already knowing how to act. He can morph into any character. And in this one, he morphs into the character of Max Wembo, and he is a guy that was just let out of prison, and he really, really wants to incorporate himself into straight society and just play it straight, be a good guy, not break the law anymore. He just wants a chill life. He wants a girlfriend. He just wants what anybody else has. And for some reason, the cards that he has dealt in this life make it impossible for him to achieve that. There are things that just, the cruel hand of fate just deals him a bad hand, and he's just drawn back into that life. And also in this movie are Harry Dean Stanton. I don't need to say it. Big fan of Harry Dean Stanton. He's great in everything. He's great in this. Gary Busey is also in this, and newcomer Teresa Russell, who was also fantastic in this. And in a lot of other films that she made, but that's for another video in the future. There is a movie with Teresa Russell in it that I want to talk about. This movie, though, fantastic, unbelievable. It's like one of those movies like when you see Goodfellas on TV or something, or Casino, or Scarface, or Dog Day Afternoon. And even if the movie's like 20 minutes in, like you'll still watch it. You'll still be like, okay, I'm locked in for the next however long this movie's on. I'm gonna watch it. This is like comfort food for the senses. This movie is in that category, very rewatchable, and it's just the kind of thing that you get something out of it every time you watch it. So I can't recommend this one enough. And please put this in the Criterion Collection. Next, I have a Scorsese movie. And I remember the last video I did, I started with a Scorsese movie that was like one of those underrated ones, one of the ones that he's not really known for, or you never really hear anybody talk about. And this is another one of those movies that, people just don't really talk about anymore. I mean, recently it's definitely gotten a reappraisal, like people have just kind of like reviewed it again and given it and reappraised it, and it's definitely scored higher than when it first came out, which was a flop. And I think it was just because it was way ahead of its time. And that movie I'm talking about is The King of Comedy. It came out in 1982, and it stars Robert De Niro, Jerry Lewis, and Sandra Bernhard, among others. But those are the three main stars in this movie. And this movie basically it has like an odd parallel to Taxi Driver, in my opinion. It's like there's some weird parallels between the main character that Robert De Niro plays here as Rupert Pupkin and the character he played in Taxi Driver, which was Travis Bickle. Okay, so this movie has a lot to do with like stalking and celebrity worship and self-delusion and narcissism, and just when the lines between reality and unreality become blurred and you venture off into dark territories. This movie definitely has a lot of that. It also has funny moments. It has cringe moments. It has edge of your seat moments. It has a little bit of everything. This movie is like an odd version of Taxi Driver, in my opinion. It's like not the same approach, not the same ultra violence, but there are weird parallels to Taxi Driver. So if you like Taxi Driver, you like Martin Scorsese, you like Robert De Niro, and you haven't seen this, you have to see this. This is definitely worth your time and worthy of the Criterion Collection. So please, let's get on that. Okay, so my next one is a movie that came out in 1973, and it was a movie that kind of followed up what was considered the very first midnight movie, and that came out in 1970. That movie was called El Topo by Alejandro Jodorowsky, and the movie I'm talking about now, though, is a movie he made 3 years later, and that movie is called The Holy Mountain. Now, if you don't know this movie is a kaleidoscopic journey, an esoteric mind bender of a film, so colorful, so beautiful, so just full of violence and just mind-bending visuals and color and thought-provoking analysis of modern society as it was when this movie was made. And it still parallels it's still a good social critique of society today, which gives this movie an incredible staying power and incredible relevance. John Lennon and Yoko Ono saw El Topo in the movie theater in 1970, and they were so blown away by it, they got in touch with Alejandro Jodorowsky, and they wanted to be a part of whatever he was doing next. And so he said, well, I'm working on Holy Mountain. And so they gave him $1 million towards funding of the movie. And that's one of the reasons the movie is so beautifully made, and the sets are just outstanding and colorful and gorgeous and mystical. And so, yeah, they gave him $1 million. And then John Lennon's manager at the time, I forget his name, he also contributed to this movie just on the strength of John Lennon's involvement in his, like his being so enthusiastic about it. And so he put in money also. And then George Harrison saw the movie and was blown away by it. And they offered George Harrison, kind of like the lead role in it. And, actually the lead role in it is played by Alejandro Jodorowsky, and he's the alchemist. But the person you see here, the person who's the seeker, was offered to George Harrison, and he was on board to do it. Except there is one scene in particular that made it a deal breaker, and if you see the scene, you'll know why. But this movie is just unbelievable. It's basically like it's visually intense, it's confrontational, but it also outlines like the path to personal enlightenment, and that's all I'll say about it, because if I keep going on and on about it, it'll just kind of give away too much. And I just want to give brief synopsis of each one of these, just give you an idea of what they're about and what I like about them. So The Holy Mountain by Alejandro Jodorowsky from 1973. And I don't know why there are no other Jodorowsky movies in the Criterion Collection, because his movies were like just made for it. Art house, surreal, beautiful, confrontational, kind of controversial. They have all the elements that would make a great inclusion in the Criterion Collection. So I'll go no further and I'll just leave that with you. And let's go on to the next one. Now, the next one is a welcome to violence type of movie. And John Waters, after seeing this movie, said, "This is the best movie that's ever been made and that will ever be made in the future." So that's quite an endorsement already. I mean, how can you beat that, right? And the movie I'm talking about is from 1965, and it's by the director Russ Meyer. And the movie I'm talking about is the infamous Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill. This movie, if you haven't seen this movie, it's an exploitation feast for the senses. It's really just, there's nothing like this movie. It's just go-go girls that blow men's minds with their bodies, and they're shaking their moneymakers, and after that they're bored and they go off racing cars and beating guys up with their karate moves and planning heists, and just just all around badass women. And women just, I'm not sure, okay, but I don't think the women were really portrayed in film like this ever before this movie, ever. And so the main protagonist in this movie is Tura Satana, and she is just fantastic. She has great one-liners. This movie is full of incredible dialogue, incredible one-liners. Too many to go into, but something about this movie is just this movie needs to be immortalized in the Criterion Collection. Russ Meyer already has an entry in the Criterion Collection with Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, so this would be a really cool companion piece to that. And yeah, let's get on that. Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill. It's not even available on anything. This is a bootleg. So this movie is ripe for a restoration. Great essays to be written about it. All kinds of extras. This movie is ripe for the Criterion treatment. So let's get that going. Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill. Okay, so next up, I have a movie that came out in 1995 and directed by Catherine Bigelow, and it was written by James Cameron. The original idea for this movie was written by James Cameron when he was working on Terminator, but he didn't really flesh it out until later on when he was about to put out the movie True Lies. But he finished the screenplay and he gave it to Catherine Bigelow for her to direct it, which at the time was his ex-wife. But you know how it goes in Hollywood, like the weird, relationships and things that go on in these relationships, and who knows, right? They don't call it Hollywood Babylon for nothing. But this movie is an underrated, underappreciated gem of a cyberpunk neo-noir thriller that really, really does need a reappraisal and really would be great in the Criterion Collection. And I am talking about Strange Days, starring Ralph Fiennes, Juliette Lewis, and all-around badass Angela Bassett. Any scene that Angela Bassett is in this movie, she just steals that scene. And she did this movie right off the heels of when she did her portrayal of Tina Turner in What's Love Got to Do With It, where she puts in a really, really powerful performance in that one as well. But I don't think that one should be in the Criterion Collection. It was a cool movie, but this one is on another level. This is in the same wheelhouse as like The Matrix and Blade Runner. This is kind of like a Blade Runner for the 90s. And I know that's a bold statement, but it does have that quality to it. And it takes place in Los Angeles on the last 2 days of the 90s, right before it turned into the year 2000. And it has to do with Ralph Fiennes being a disgraced ex-cop who turns into like this hustler, kind of like a drug dealer, but he doesn't deal like actual drugs. What he deals is experiences. And I'll go no further than that. But this movie here is fantastic and definitely worthy of inclusion in the Criterion Collection. It's has a really great 90s soundtrack, definitely of its time. And I don't know what else I can say about it. It's still relevant today. Like, the things that happen in this movie are still relevant today. This came out not too long after the Rodney King riots, so LA was still kind of like a hotbed of controversy, and there was like still a lot of tension in the air. So it was really cool that this movie took place in LA. And I'll say no more about it, but if you haven't seen Strange Days, definitely seek this one out. It's not easy to find. I'm lucky I found this copy of it. I think that it's on streaming now. I think if you look on HBO Max, you could find it. And if you see it, you should definitely, if you see it on there, you should definitely check it out. But other than that, I think this is another worthy possibility for the Criterion Collection in the future. At least for me, in my opinion. Okay, I'll say no more about that, and I'll get on with the next one. Okay, and the next one I have is a slow cinema, pretty much the magnum opus. Like, I think like the crowning jewel of slow cinema. In the last video I made, I discussed one of the movies I discussed was another like fantastic slow cinema movie, called Perfect Days by Wim Wenders. Now, but this is on another level. And if I'm talking about slow cinema, this movie has a runtime of 7 hours on 2 Blu-rays, and there's nothing quite like this one. And this one was by the filmmaker Bela Tarr. And I'm talking about the movie Satin Tango, and this movie came out in 1994. Okay, it features very long takes, and it takes place in Hungary, a small village in Hungary, post-communism. Okay, it's incredibly bleak. It's very sad. Like, Bela Tarr movies just have this trademark to them. When he made movies, they basically focused on this type of atmosphere of like just the deafening sound of the quiet desperation of these people and their lives. And I think that this one really does paint the picture very vividly because it's so long. Because the takes are so long, you're looking at these images for a long time, as if you were in a room with these people and looking at them. It's not edited like a movie, like a regular movie where the takes are quick and it's edited quick. And so you catch glimpses, and that's still obviously very effective. But this movie is on like another level. It hits you different because the takes are so long that you do kind of like you're immersed in it. After a while, you become immersed in it in this very special kind of way where you or almost like more of a participant in it, or you're just like, it affects you differently because of how long you're exposed to these images. And even though it's like a 7-hour runtime, I'm not saying it's easy breezy. This movie did not go by easy breezy, but it pays off. If you watch the whole thing, it definitely has a huge payoff. At least it did for me. And Bela Tarr is already in the Criterion Collection. He's had a recent inclusion in it, I think last year, with the movie Werkmeister Harmonies. Which is also of this type of aesthetic. But again, this is the magnum opus of slow cinema. If you love slow cinema and you haven't seen this movie, then you really do need to see it. If not, and any of the things that I said to describe this movie appeal to you, then please, by all means, watch this. This is great. Okay, so my next choice for inclusion in the Criterion Collection is a movie that came out in 1986. It was directed by Oliver Stone, and it stars James Woods and Jim Belushi. And that movie is called Salvador. This movie is pretty much... Oh, also John Savage is in this. You might remember from the movie The Deer Hunter. This movie is a harrowing, brutal, crazy movie. And it takes place... It takes place during the Salvadoran Civil War in 1980. It's a harrowing, tragic movie. It also is funny. It has like funny elements to it too, which is really odd. And it reminds me of Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. But this is like more of like, this guy is like more of a journalist, or at least like a more of a grimy, gritty journalist than Hunter Thompson was, at least portrayed in that movie. This movie should have been called Fear and Loathing in El Salvador, because the way that he and Jim Belushi's character, called Dr. Rock, who basically just plays like, Jim Belushi just plays like a washed up radio DJ, and James Woods plays like, not a washed up photojournalist, but a photojournalist that is just a horrible person. in every aspect of his life, but he has a heart, and he has a heart and for these stories. Like he basically puts everything into his work. But he's just down on his luck, and he's burned every bridge known to man. His life is in shambles, and he can't get a break for anything. And his life in the United States is in shambles, so he finds some way to escape, to get, to see if he can get some photos of the Salvadoran Civil War, and he drags along Jim Belushi just to have a partner in crime. And what happens from the moment they get in that car to the moment they cross into the border of El Salvador is a harrowing, brutal, crazy, edge of your seat, and at times very funny movie. I know that doesn't make any sense, but this movie is incredible. I think this is like one of Oliver Stone's best movies. Oliver Stone really has a bad rap because I don't know. He's done some things. He's definitely, I guess, rubbed people the wrong way, whatever his deal was. But all that aside, this movie is awesome. Also, JFK. If you haven't seen JFK, definitely check that one out. But I prefer this one. This one's like grittier and more real. And James Woods is just awesome. So, Salvador. Now, all these movies are different. I'm trying to pick like different genres and stuff. And the next one I have is an animated movie, a stop animation movie. And I think this is probably the craziest and most mind-bending animated movie I've ever seen, and that's saying a lot. This movie is called The Wolf House, and it came out in 2018, and it's a Chilean movie. The movie was made by Cristobal Leon and Joaquin Cosina, and it's based on real life events. I mean, it's a fantasy, but its roots are in real life events. Basically, there was a Chilean religious cult that was happening, and the main protagonist in this story is called Maria, and she escapes from that religious cult that happened in real life, and she escapes and she finds a mansion with 2 pigs living in it, and so she moves in with the 2 pigs. Of course she does. So, and the thing is, this movie has so much imagination. This movie is like a dream. This movie is like a crazy dream, and has dream logic, and the visuals are unbelievable. Like usually, like these movies are made on small sets, right? This movie was made on real life-sized sets, and everything had to be rearranged and painted and repainted and moved, and like so much work went into making this movie. Is just awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping visuals, and it's basically she moves into this mansion, right? And the mansion shapeshifts with her feelings. So however she's feeling, her surroundings are automatically matching that in the animated sequence. So it's unbelievable, animation. It's like something out of a dream. It defies description. Like, I'm finding it hard to really describe it because it is one of those things that's so visually impactful, and I've never seen anything like it. It reminds me kind of like the Quay brothers, if you're familiar with them, but much more intense. So this movie, more people need to see this. I think a lot of people don't even know about this. But if you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, seek this one out. If any of the weird ramblings I just said, I know it was kind of incoherent because I really can't find the words to describe how visually impactful this movie is. So, The Wolf House. Check this one out. And please, Criterion Collection, what are you doing? You're dropping the ball. This definitely needs to be in there. Okay, so I went over 9 selections. This is my last selection. However, I'm kind of cheating here because it's 2. It's 2 selections in one. I think that this would make a fantastic double feature, and you'll see why in a minute. Now, the movie I'm talking about, the first of the 2 I'm talking about, came out in 1982, and it was directed by Alan Parker, and it's a very, it's a famous work, but it's very hard to find, and it's not on Blu-ray. From what I could tell, it hasn't been released on Blu-ray, or if it has, it's very rare. And I'm talking about Pink Floyd's The Wall, which, it's timeless in its, message of just social decay and just the nature of isolation and a rock star's descent into just madness and self-loathing and just the troubled life he's led. as a result of his father being killed in the war and being raised by a single mom who was just very overprotective and overbearing, and which led him to this isolated state of mind. And now he became a popular rock star, and he just doesn't know how to handle it. And aside from that, The Wall, as you very well may know, had these legendary, fantastic animated sequences. And this movie is another one of those movies that's like a mirror of modern society. You know, it definitely still holds true. A lot of the things that, a lot of the critiques of society that this movie, you know, pretty much describes and shows are still things that haunt us in modern society today. So I think this would be great as part of a double feature. And the next movie, or the companion piece to this movie that I think would be like just the cherry on top, like the crown jewel, right, is a movie that was, well, it's like not even a movie, it's like a concert film that was made in 1972, but it wasn't made for an audience. It was made for no audience because Pink Floyd played in the ruins of Pompeii. Now, I don't know if you've seen this, Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii, but basically what they did was they did a whole concert and they took all their equipment, everything out to the ruins of Pompeii. They set up like solar generators and a film crew, and they went about just playing their set. And something about this performance was just unbelievable, because this was like Pink Floyd at the height of their powers. And it's just one of those things where you see these performances and everybody's like so in the cut. It's like the planets were all aligned and they were in the right spot at the right time, and they opened some kind of amazing portal, and the universe just spoke through them and their instruments, and they just put on this killer performance, especially in the song Echoes, where they're playing Echoes and all of a sudden they get into this groove, and it's one of the most savage grooves I've ever heard. And it just goes on, and it's just like, it's beautiful. It is like just musical perfection. Pink Floyd was just so amazing. And this would just be a fantastic double feature. Pink Floyd The Wall and Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii. And for good measure, as in part of the extra features, why don't you just go ahead and throw in, you know, The Wizard of Oz and have it synced up to the Dark Side of the Moon album, and there you go. There's another Wizard of Oz reference to wrap things up nicely. Thank you so much for watching my choices for movies that should be included in the Criterion Collection and haven't as of yet. And the Barnes & Noble sale started yesterday. The 50% off Criterion Collection sale at Barnes & Noble started yesterday and will continue until December 7th. So you have plenty of room, plenty of time to get over there and get your wish list checked off, and also maybe buy some gifts from people. This would be a perfect time to, you know, do your holiday shopping for those cinephiles that you love. And I'll leave you with that. And I have to go do some tattoos to pay for my Criterion obsessions. So I'm off to see the Wizard to get some tattoos done. And I will speak to you guys very soon with another video of my unedited ramblings. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. Please feel free to leave me comments about your thoughts on these selections and selections of your own. I love having conversations about movies and movies that I haven't heard about yet, and I really dig the recommendations you guys always send me, and I can't thank you enough. So again, thank you so much, and I'll catch you later. Take it easy.